Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by FX of Gardyn FX. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so to kick things off, I'd like to start out with your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
I grew up in France, as you can hear. I will always keep this very strong accent, and I got married in Provence. So at the end of the day, it was a lot of being outdoors and pretty very nature oriented upbringing, I would say.
Yeah, growing up in France, what would you say some of your interests or hobbies were? Maybe growing up as a young kid. I'm curious.
I started doing a lot of sport even pretty early on, and I was a swimmer. And being in Marseille, so in the south of France, that was really great because I could go swimming in the sea. We were also doing a lot of scuba diving. Remember, as soon as I could, during the weekend, taking some trip, and just diving with friends. That was really great.
Yeah, amazing. So getting into schooling, what did schooling look like as far as university and college looked like? Did you study in France? Did you stay there, or where did you end up going?
Yeah, I really always love science. So I've always been a big nerd in terms of science and technology. I remember, when I was 16, I dated my first girlfriend. Actually, I was reading a book about black holes, and I still don't understand why she talked to me, but okay, that's a mystery. And I studied science, engineering, mostly in France at École Polytechnique, and then I also studied at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Mm,
So mostly focusing on engineering. And then, moving forward, worked a lot on different types of technology, designed microprocessors a long time ago, worked in the nuclear industry before the Fukushima accident, at the time that nuclear was seen as a way to address climate change, in the beginning of the years 2000.
mhm,
And then more recently, before starting a garden, I was working at Capgemini
mm.
and working with teams on building cloud and AI automation solutions for large companies.
Wow, that's incredible. So, I mean, you covered quickly there at a high level some of that journey, but let's get into post graduation. Where did those interests take you? So, I know you have as you mentioned, engineering background. So, what did that look like right when you graduated and entering into your first career job?
Yeah, I was always been passionate about how I could use technology to do good and try to shape something better. So when I graduated, and my first job actually was working for the French EPA, the equivalent of the EPA in the US, but in France. So
Hmm.
working a lot to reduce air pollution. And I was in Marseille. There are pretty big industrial areas around Marseille. So it was really working with industries to try to reduce emissions, also everything about traffic, pollution from traffic. That was super exciting because when you see the impact it has on people, on the environment, that's really something you want to work on.
Mm, incredible. Getting into maybe, so you have this entrepreneurial journey, as you mentioned, or this engineering background. Getting into some of those entrepreneurial pursuits, though, where does the realization of Garden, and if you can kind of dive in for the listeners, what Garden is at a high level, and where did the idea come from at start?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, at the end of the day, someone pretty famous, I think that was Steve Jobs, said that you can always connect the dots. You can
Hmm.
only connect the dots backward. I think that's really true. If I look at the way I started in life, I've never been in a startup or this type of thing. I started working first for the government, the EPA, and then working for very large companies in the designing microprocessors, nuclear industry, and then Capgemini with that's a pretty large company as well. So I was really not meant to start a company. The reason I started Garden, I'll come to it to what it is in a minute, is simply because I was frustrated. I was frustrated with what I was seeing was available, and in particular, growing up in Provence. At that time, I was not realizing it, but I was super lucky to be able to have access to amazing produce and food, super healthy, super natural, organic. I was going to, little markets. They don't even call it farmers market. They are just markets, but you take produce. They've been harvested like a few hours before, and this is just delicious and super nutritious. And when I moved to the East Coast a long time ago now, I was really frustrated by the quality of produce. And as I was saying, I'm doing a lot of sport, long distance running, swimming, cycling, triathlons, Ironman. And I could see that my performance was totally different. I could see that I was not feeling the same. And I started researching how come. And then I realized that the reason is you go to the supermarket, you have all this produce. Usually it's pretty expensive. If you think about Whole Food or Trader Joe's, they look great, but it's pretty expensive. And at the end of the day, most of this produce has been harvested like several weeks, sometimes several months prior. And it's been grown with a lot of pesticides, a lot of also using a lot of water. So at the end of the day, it's not that great for you, and that's what I realized. And being in technology, working on AI at a time that it was not the buzzword it is today, I was thinking, could we use AI to grow food? That would be so cool that, in every home, people could have all their food available, super fresh produce. You have nothing to do. You come back from work. You have a just amazing garden that is here, that is just waiting for you. You pick whatever you want. You have a big salad, and you enjoy amazingly tasty and nutritious food with your family. That was the dream. I was like, can we do that? And I started thinking about this. And when you start, challenging yourself about such an idea, you realize that there are a lot of issues, obviously. First, most people don't have that much space. If you think about it, even if you have a house, it's limited space, but some people, more and more people live in an apartment, so you don't have that much space. If you want to grow enough food to feed a family, you really need to invent a new technology that is super compact, that is really growing a ton of food on a very small footprint. So that was the first challenge. The second challenge is people have no clue how to do that. Most people, each time I talk to friends, they're like, I'm the worst plants guy. I kill everything. There is no way. I have no green thumb. And you can learn how to take care of plants, but that's a lot of work. And most people are like, no, that's not that's not what I want to focus on. I have so many other things I want to do. I just want to enjoy the outcome of it, but I don't want to spend time learning. I have no green thumb. So how do you grow things in a way that people don't have to take care of it too much? So that means it needs to be automated. It needs to be managed by something else, and that's where the AI comes from. And the last thing that is connected to the previous one is really time. People have no time. You don't want to spend hours. I mean, some people have a garden and they tend to their garden, and that's great. That's amazing, but it takes a lot of skills and time, and it's also big strings attached. That means you cannot go on vacation that easily. Who's going to take care of the garden and so on? So there was really this question of, we live very crazy, busy lives, and I want to be busy. I want to be active. I want to be outside. I want to see friends. I want to do the most out of it, and at the same time, I want to have this beautiful, super nutritious food at home that I have not much to do to get the outcome of it. And that's really where the concept started from. So I said, we need to find a solution to crack these three things. And that's how we created Gardyn. So Gardyn is, the vision is what I discussed. And we built this machine that is super tight, super compact. It's just, depending on the model, between 1 and 2 square feet. So it's not bigger than a potted plant, but actually you can grow up to 30 big, large plants on this garden. It grows vertically. So that's the technology we developed, that we patented. We have a lot of patents. That's something that is totally new. So you can have a lot of food. You can produce enough food to feed a family of 4, have a big salad every day. And at the same time, it is managed by AI so that you have not that much to do. And the AI is really doing the hard work for you.
That's incredible. So in the early days, as far as R&D goes for a product like that, I mean, it's something that I could definitely see a lot of consumers loving, because a lot of people, like you mentioned, like they would love to grow food, but they can't keep a dandelion alive. So as far as like R&D goes, what did those early days look like, testing the product and trying to experiment, especially with your background?
Yeah, that was, the early days of any company, exactly to your point about starting small. It is hard. It is hard because you're trying to create something totally new. And I can tell you, in the beginning, it does not work. It does not work. It sucks. And it took us many months to get to something that was kind of working. So how I started in my garage, like, the usual the startup way. In the garage, I bought 3D printers. And I started designing prototypes of what this garden could look like. And they were printing on the 3D printers. I put some 3D printers on my kitchen, countertop. I enrolled my wife and my 2 boys to actually have shifts. to take care of the prototypes, because it takes a lot of time to actually make just one part of it. So, typically you had to change parts every 5 or 9 hours. And so they had to come and take care of it. So that was really a family thing.
Wow.
We built, different prototypes like this. And in full transparency, the first ones really did not work at all. That was really bad. That was really bad. But we kept pushing. We said, okay, what is it that is not working? And you try to fix one thing after the other, one step after the other. And after several months of design and prototyping and trial and errors, we got to something that seemed to be working pretty okay. It was not looking great, but it was doing the job. And I told my wife, you know what? Let's go. We're gonna, raise money. That's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna quit I was at Capgemini still, doing this in parallel. And I said, I'm gonna quit Capgemini, and that's gonna be the way to go. And she said, no, FX. There is no way. There is no way. I mean, we have a mortgage. The kids are going to go to college. There is no way you're gonna, drop your job just like this. And no, I mean, I understand your dream. I understand that could work, but prove me it can work.
Yeah.
And I think she was totally right. I mean, I think, at the end of the day, when you start something, you are very biased, because you really believe in your dream. You believe in what you're doing. You kind of see what it could be. But the question is it realistic? Is it going to work at all? So her main challenge was, prove me that it can work. I said, okay, well, how do you want me to prove you that it's going to work? She said, you know what you can do is use your 3D printers, not just to make prototypes, but to make several of them, and give this to friends and ask them what they think about it. So that's what I did. I turned the 3D printers into, I wouldn't call it my inspiration, because I made maybe 20 of them, but
Wow.
A few prototypes that I gave to friends. And I say, hey guys, let me know what you think about it. And my wife said, okay, but I want to be the one that is going to interview them to really get their feedback, honest feedback.
Yeah.
So that's what we did for a few months. And then after a few months, she went to them and asked them what they were thinking about.
Wow. So, I mean, at what point did you convince her to then allow you to back off that job? Or what point was that? Were you rolling in some revenue at that point, or did you do a fundraising round? What was that?
No, at that time, there was absolutely no revenue. I think the point that she got convinced, and again, I think her approach was the right one. I'm always a very pushy guy, but I think she was, the wisdom of saying, hey, at some point you need to test things. You need to get feedback from the market. Even if it's a small market, it's just friends and so on, you need to get this feedback. And I think the breakthrough came when she got the feedback from our friends. So she went to all our friends, and she came back to me and said, hey, FX, I talked to each of them, and the feedback is there are a lot of things to improve. It's not looking great. The aesthetics of it is really bad. There are a lot of things to be fixed, but overall they love it. Overall, the food is incredible, and they love the experience, and they want to keep their prototypes, and they were super excited. So we said, okay, we're on something. We're on something. We know we need to improve it, but we're on something. And that's when we went to friends and family to raise a bit of money to industrialize this. So we found partners to industrialize it. Industrializing means that you move from a prototype that you just 3D printed that is doing the job, but cannot be mass produced, to something that can really be mass produced, something that has been designed to be really beautiful, to be way more consumer centric. And at that time, we really spent time on the aesthetics of it, thinking like that's something you're going to put in your home. That's something that needs to be beautiful. So what kind of look we want that it looks beautiful? What kind of material? So we decided we wanted to have something very natural. So we put wood on the garden. There is a part that is in wood. We wanted to have plastic that are super pure, because at the end of the day, it's our food. So we pick plastic that are FDA compliant, food grade, top quality. There is no chemicals in it. So that was something very important for us. And then we took, the light that is actually providing all the light that the plants need. That is also something very important. So we said, we're going to work a lot on the color of this light, because at the end of the day, that's in your apartment or your house. that's your place. You want to feel great. You want to feel, comfortable and mindful.
Hmm.
So we really worked also on the color to make it something that is super warm. And so we industrialized this and with a partner in China at that time. And I did a lot of back and forth with China. And I remember we finalized the first production in January 2020.
Hmm.
So I was in
Wow.
China January 2020 in the factory. I was sleeping over there, with a friend of mine that was helping me, and to make sure that the production would be done correctly, making sure that all the gardens would go in the container. And so that was pretty intense. And we
Wow.
came back to the US end of January. And when I came back end of January 2020 to the US, met with friends, and they said, "Oh, you're in China. Have you heard about this virus, this corona?"
Ah.
And no, I have no clue. I was in China. Nobody was talking about this virus in China at that time. And
Hmm.
that's how COVID actually started. So I was actually in China when COVID broke out,
Wow.
early 2020. Um, we got the containers from China early March. And then March, I think that was March 12 or 13, I don't remember, lockdown, everything stopped. So
Hmm.
we would have had we received these containers like a week or two later, there would be no garden. We would
Wow.
not be talking today. So that's really, that's what entrepreneurship is about. It's
Hmm.
also about chance. You need to be lucky. You need to also move fast, and because time is killing so many projects.
Yeah. I mean,
And we could, yeah.
I was gonna say this is a critical piece of the story within that timeline. So, I mean, receiving that first order in March, what did the continuing manufacturing look like from there? Did you have enough inventory to sell through, or
So we had some inventory. We could not keep producing, obviously, because China also stopped.
yeah,
But at least we had some inventory we could sell. And the thing that we were super proud of is at that time, if you remember, everybody was locked down. And that was really the question of what do you do at home and how do you get food and so on. So we were super happy to actually be able to help people with gardens. And for us, we were super proud of how we could help everyone. So that's how we started. To
wow,
some extent, that helped us because people, wanted to have this type of solutions to be able to keep eating. At the same time, that was super hard from a supply chain
mm,
perspective, making everything work. And then obviously when COVID kind of, faded away, we kept the production. We moved our production to Malaysia, the following year. And since then, we've been iterating different generations of product. So right now we're at the fourth generation of
wow,
Gardyn Home, and we recently, it was end of last year, released a new model that is called Gardyn Studio. That is way more compact. It's just 1 square foot of
mm,
footprint, and that's perfect typically for a couple in an apartment.
incredible. In those early days, say like that first batch of inventory, what did logistics regarding fulfillment look like? So, getting it to the customer at that point, did you have a warehouse? Were you shipping yourself or a 3PL? What did those early days look like?
Yeah, so we've been lucky enough to have a great partner. So we're based out of Washington.
Hmm.
More specifically, we're in Maryland. We found a great partner close to Baltimore. It's called Three Dogs, and they've helped us, all the way through. And I remember, at that time being in their warehouse with them, just packing things and making sure that everything was done on time. But they've been super helpful, and we're still working with them. So the way we work, the device itself is manufactured in Asia. It comes through containers, and then we have this 3PL in Baltimore. We have also two other 3PLs, one in Nevada now for the West Coast, and one in Texas,
Hmm.
where we're sending these devices. There is another supply chain that we kept totally separate that for us is super important, is everything that touches the plants. So obviously the garden grows all these plants. We are working a lot to find the best seeds possible. So we have a team that is dedicated, and they're just traveling the world to find the best seeds possible, um, trying to bring ancient seeds,
Mm,
things that our grandmothers were growing that are incredible, super tasty, super nutritious, but have been dropped by the industry. We're trying to bring these seeds back to life. So
yeah.
we are working with all these little farms, small farms, to get these seeds, and then we are putting these seeds in a cube. It looks like this,
Hmm.
This cube is like a K-cup with the seeds inside. That's what you're getting when you buy a garden. And when you order more plants, they come in this cube. It's dry, so you can keep it as long as you want. And you just plug it in the system, and the system takes over and start growing the plant for you.
Wow.
So this supply chain of making these cubes, selecting the seeds and making sure that everything is right is actually manufactured in Maryland.
Okay. Amazing. Can you kind of walk the listeners through what the experience looks like from the customer's point of view? So, say they order from Gardyn, they receive their product. What does that look like? Like, how hands off can a customer be to like grow uh, a healthy, I would say, produce? What would you say that kind of experience looks like for the customer?
Yes, that's a great question. So you can buy a garden from our website, from Amazon, Home Depot. We have different partners like this. We've sold already north of 100,000 of them. So
Mm.
it's pretty impressive. We're super proud of this. We have two models: a garden home, 30 plants, typically for a family of four, or garden studio, 16 plants, typically for a couple in an apartment. When you buy this, typically on our website, you're gonna get the box with the garden within 2 to 3 days, thanks to our 3PLs.
Hmm.
It comes with all the plants as I was describing. So you're going to install it. The installation is super easy. At the end of the day, you just need to plug the columns, the light, and add water, and that's it. So it's going to take you like 10, 15 minutes. Super easy. You plug the plants, all the plants in the slots, and the system is going to take over. You just need power and Wi-Fi, and the system gets connected to you just pair it to the internet, but then it knows what to do, and it's going to water the plants. It's going to start the germination, and typically within 2 to 3 days you're going to get the first sprouts. And that's the amazing things, in particular for kids, but not just for kids, also for adults. They're like, wow, it's growing so fast, and you see these tiny little sprouts. That's really amazing. And typically after 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to have a big plant, a big head of lettuce, for example, and you're going to be able to start eating on it. The miracle, or the tip is, what you do is you take the big leaves around and you leave the smaller one in the middle.
Mm.
And this way, you do it on many plants, you get this big salad. But at the end of the day, because you leave the smaller leaves in the middle, they're going to come back because the root system is developed. And within a week, the plant is going to be back the way it was. So
Wow.
that's the beauty of it. You have a garden that is super compact, but it's going to keep producing and producing and producing. And you're going to eat on the same cube for 3 to 4 months. And
Wow.
once it's over, you just order new cubes like this in the app, and you start again. But it's going to
Wow.
be, it's really a full production of plants all the time. It's not, from feast to famine. It's really, that's the beauty of this system. You're going to keep eating on this for months and months.
Wow.
And you can grow whatever you want. I mean, we have now north of 120 varieties. You can think of, obviously, all the leafy greens, different types of lettuce, arugula. You can think of herbs, thyme, rosemary, sage, mint. The sky's the limit. You can think of tomatoes, zucchinis, eggplants, cucumbers. All this you can absolutely grow. Strawberries, they're my favorite. They're so
Yeah.
sweet and so good. The beauty with so typically what I do, in particular in winter, I have a garden full of strawberries.
Mm.
And every morning when I wake up, I just go there and pick my strawberries and have breakfast with it, with oatmeal. And this is amazing. And the thing that is amazing is, first, it's beautiful. Just imagine that you have your own strawberry field, in
Hmm.
your apartment or your house. That's just crazy, in particular in winter. The second thing that I love is, strawberries are fruit. So before they turn into fruits, they flower.
Hmm.
So every day you're going to see a lot of these white flowers popping up, and you're going to have to pollinate them. And when we launched strawberries, we were really worried because we were thinking, hey, are people open to pollinating? And that's a bit of work. And we realized that actually people love it. Why? Because it's super easy. You just take your thumb and you just, rub it on the flower very nicely. That's
Hmm.
it. So it's super easy. But people love it because it's a way to actually tend to your garden, tend to the plants, connect to nature. So we
Yeah.
see so many people posting on social, hey, I'm taking care of my strawberries, I took care of the flowers. And then as soon as you've pollinated the flowers that way, a few days later, you start seeing the strawberry coming and
Mm.
growing. And then at some point being yellow and then turning big red. And that's really incredible. And they are super sweet.
It's amazing. So, I mean, there's just some incredible stats here. I'll just name off a couple, like 3.5 million pounds of produce and saved 60 million gallons of water. And here's another one, eliminated 1.9 pounds of food waste. So, as far as like getting some of those metrics over the past few years since the launch, what would you say marketing wise works well for you guys? I mean, this is not seen before. I mean, it's regardless of region where you're from, you can now have a garden within your home. So, what marketing works well? What are you drawing in to grab the consumer?
Yeah, that's a great question. Marketing is hard because at the end of the day, we're selling an experience where people, when they have a garden, everybody, you can see it on social when they post, or when you talk to friends, people are saying, "I love my garden." It's very emotional because
Mhm,
it's connecting to your food, to nature. It is knowing where your food comes from. It is having your kids have this experience firsthand of natural thing. So this
mhm,
is super powerful. This is really impressive. It is hard to convey this on a website. It is hard to convey this through Instagram ads or Facebook ads. So we're doing it as much as we can. um, we have so many people telling us, I was on the fence. I was really hesitating. I went to your website. I looked at the reviews. Okay, the reviews are really great, but is it really genuine? I'm not sure. And then at some point, they just take the step.
mm,
And then they come back to us and say, "Hey, I love it. I don't understand why it took me so long to make the decision." And that's really, I would say, the conundrum, or the hurdle, the main hurdle we have is, for something that is so new and that is amazing in terms of the experience and the impact it's going to have on your life and your family's life, how do you explain this to people? That's
mhm.
really the thing that is super hard.
Yeah. Taking some of that feedback from some of that community that you've built, what would you say is the main demographic overall, the main consumer for the product?
What we're seeing is, actually, we have a lot of people everywhere in the US, really in every state. Um, it's mostly people, it's millennial couples, I would say starting around 30, 35, through 45, 50. That can be young couples, that can be families. That's typically what we see, mostly suburban.
Hmm.
That is changing because now with the Garden Studio we released end of last year, we have a model that is super compact, perfect for apartments. So we're seeing more and more people, in urban areas. And my expectation when I started garden would be that it would be mostly for cold areas. I was thinking the northern part of the U.S. Obviously, we are very big in the northern part of the U.S., but we see actually a lot of people taking gardens also in California, in Texas, in
Mm,
Florida. And the main reason is, I know it's not a question of climate and weather. It's really a question of having access to super healthy food in a way that is super easy. And
yeah.
that's really what makes a difference.
Yeah. Looking at the future of food, I mean, garden is definitely pioneering a new category here. And as we see with trends, like the transparency of where our food's coming from, what's getting on our food is continuing to decline. Where do you see in the future of food, especially like AI playing a role? I would love to hear your point of view.
I'm really convinced that the food system is going to evolve big time in the coming years
Yeah.
for the better, I hope. It is really super important it does, simply because right now, and most people don't know that, but you mentioned some stats. The food system we have right now is really broken. It's really
Mm,
broken on both sides of the equation. On the production side, we are producing a lot of food in this country and everywhere in the world with a huge impact on the environment, using pesticides, using a lot of water. 70% of the fresh water available in the US is used for agriculture. And most of this
mm,
water just goes to evaporation, using a lot of pesticides that are destroying the ecosystems, or polluting the rivers. And then all of this is trucked, across the US, sometimes flown from far away with a lot of CO2 emissions. So we
mm,
have a system that is not sustainable in terms of the way that the planet is going. But the
yeah.
other side of the equation is broken as well. If you look at what you get on your plate, it's really bad. And there is a ton of research right now showing that we have a big health problem, public health problem in this country. If you think about people that are obese or overweight, that's now 75% of the population.
Mm,
75%,
wow.
and that's more and more for young people, for kids. And that means that that's a big issue, because when you are overweight or obese, you know that you're not in the best shape you can be. You're going to have some issues with diabetes. with cardiovascular diseases, and that's going to have an impact on your life, and that's bad. But the thing is, it is really hard because if you look at what is around you, it's mostly junk food. If you go to your grocery store and you really want to eat healthy, you have the impression that your produce you're buying are great, but actually that there is nothing left inside. There is no more nutrients or vitamins. It's been harvested weeks before.
Yeah.
So I think people are really trying hard, but we're really in a system that doesn't make it easy for people to be healthy. So that's really what we want to change.
Yeah.
And with Gardyn, and there are many other companies doing incredible things also in their field. Our goal is to help people be the best version of themselves. Everybody wants to be healthy, obviously. It is just that it's super hard. We have crazy, busy lives. How can we make it easy for everyone to have access to the best food possible at home with no green thumb? That's what we're doing.
Incredible. So, such an incredible story so far in FX. I like to conclude each episode with this. If you can share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned along the way or regret, what would you say that would be?
My main advice for every entrepreneur in the becoming is persistence. At the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Is you're gonna have ups and downs. Think about when I was in China, just when COVID broke, and we could have stopped, we could have done. We just kept going, and I think that's really my main takeaway and lessons learned. And it's super hard because you are shaping something new that does not exist, and building something new is hard and is going through a lot of hurdles and issues. And people also don't believe in it. Like, hey, it won't work. It's going to fail. You hear so many people not believing in your dream, in your vision. And you need to stick to your dream, to your vision. You need to be persistent. But also at the same time, I would say, listen, test, go to the market as early as possible. You want people's feedback. That's really what makes a difference.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, FX, thank you so much for taking the time. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Gardyn at mygarden.com.